Hello, my name is Michael Salla, and I thought I would make a video today. Seems like about time. Make a video about Corey Goode, make a video about some of the controversies people have been talking about, and some of my experiences with Corey, and some of the reasons why I think he's legit, why I believe Corey Goode. And that's kind of a complicated thing. I won't cover everything in this video. I just felt like there are some things that have happened to me that I've experienced that maybe should be known by other people who are interested in maybe validating Corey Goode's testimony, looking for evidence. Basically, there's a lot of people out there claiming there's no evidence for what Corey's claiming, and I thought maybe I should even spend a little time discussing my view of evidence. First off, I'd like to say I don't see anybody in the UFO community as an enemy or somehow against me, just because they have views that I don't agree with. And I feel like there's a lot of spiritual stuff going on with all this back and forth balancing between people who get triggered by one another. And there's a really great A Course in Miracles workbook lesson I kept being reminded of called Lesson 135, If I Defend Myself, I Am Attacked. And I'm going to read this to you. Who would defend himself unless he thought he were attacked, and that the attack were real, and that his own defense could save himself? And herein lies the folly of defense. It gives illusions full reality, and then attempts to handle them as real. It adds illusions to illusions, thus making correction doubly difficult. I don't want to say that there are not complications when you become completely accepting and when you want to just fully love everyone and allow everything to happen, because there are obviously points at which you have to set boundaries. And I'm not saying this video is like another boundary. I'm saying that I can have an open heart in every situation. You can too. And let's keep that in mind when we talk about the back and forth of what seems like a kind of war for the truth, but in reality is probably a war for our souls that we're missing a little bit. We're really trying to learn some lessons here that are much deeper than the physical reality stuff of what actually is happening on the planet and in space. So on the nature of evidence, I should say that when I was like 21 years old, I first came across the Disclosure Project on YouTube. I was totally closed-minded to everything related to UFOs because I assumed there was no evidence, because I felt like I'd heard that over and over. There's no good evidence, there's no good evidence. And once I started doing a little research for myself, I found out, wow, the evidence is so overwhelming that it makes me really wonder if those people saying there is no evidence actually really believe there was no evidence. And like, how could I trust anyone who says that anymore, there is no evidence? Like, I have to look for myself for evidence. And I feel like that kind of applies to the Corey Goode situation. And I thought that maybe I should bring up some things it doesn't seem like people are talking about that seem like significant evidence. There's one particular thing I should bring up right away. Just tell this story a little bit about Corey Goode's Defense Intelligence Agency documents that he leaked on his website in December 2017. The documents were titled Traversable Wormhole Stargates Negative Energy, Defense Intelligence Reference Document, and also Warp Drive, Dark Energy, and the Manipulation of Extra Dimensions. Similar thing, created by the program which has been called Advanced Aerospace Threat Identification Program. But you'll notice in these documents, and this is why people didn't make the connection right away, page 2 of these documents, right here at the bottom, you'll see it says this was from the Defense Intelligence Agency Advanced Warning Office's Advanced Aerospace Weapons System Applications Program, sometimes called AAWSAP by researchers, AAWSAP. And this was the program that in later 2018 Luis Elizondo confirmed was the name of the AATIP program before he took it over, before the scope was narrowed down for the program. I have a Skype chat screenshot here, Corey Goode from Sunday, December 17th, 2017. He asked me, do you know of a good way to make each of these documents URLs that can be viewed online or posted in social media? We'll be posting these on Wednesday. And basically, part of me was like freaking out. You're posting these on Wednesday, but it's Sunday. Shouldn't you take these down? Like, and I asked him, what shouldn't we take these down if you're not releasing it till Wednesday? And he didn't seem to care. And I mean, it wasn't a big deal. But now I know why it's a big deal, because December 17th, the New York Times, front page of the New York Times, glowing auras and black money, the Pentagon's mysterious UFO program. The AATIP disclosure that has been the biggest UFO story of the 21st century. Everybody's been talking about it. Nobody mentions Corey Goode. He was the only person releasing documents from AATIP in December 2017. How did this happen? Early November 2017, I was at Corey's house, and he mentioned these documents to me. And he was taking a whole bunch of precautions, and I didn't know if this was like overkill with all these precautions he was taking. And he mentioned the specific Defense Intelligence Agency insider to me. He mentioned some things. I'm not sure if I should even say these things about this person, although I saw Michael Salla posting about it very recently. But so I had this understanding that there was these documents going to be coming from this DIA source, and then coincidentally, December 17th, they did come. And the question I had to later ask when I realized this connection between posting on that day, the universe or something is sending us a message here. And this is like not just like validation that Corey Goode has an insider. This is like next level stuff that Corey Goode is being directed by some kind of cosmic thing, that all the things he's doing accidentally or not are somehow being orchestrated to like give us a little window into this sense of mystery. And this is like one of the most important Law of One quotes, I think, if you want to understand the UFO subject. There have been as many as 15 of the Confederation groups in your skies at any one time. The others are available to you through thought. At present, there are 7 races, basically, which are operating with craft in your density. Their purposes are very simple: to allow those entities of your planet to become aware of infinity, which is often best expressed to the uninformed as the mysterious or unknown. And there are other very similar quotes to this. Some entities appear to the Atlanteans to encourage and inspire studies in the mystery of unity. Mystery of unity is where I put the emphasis. They say everything begins and ends in mystery. So what I'm trying to say is we can have our partial disclosure, but the universe seemingly is always going to give us another door, saying, yes, this might be controlled disclosure, partial disclosure, coming out with relating to the AATIP program. TTSA maybe is steering disclosure in a way that's avoiding most of what disclosure has been, most of what the UFO topic has been to people. But if you want to actually thoroughly research the AATIP story and the history of it, Corey Goode is interwoven into the fabric of it right now. And people don't know this, people don't recognize this, but there is proof of this. January 16th, 2019, Steven Aftergood received back word from a Freedom of Information Act request looking for the resources, the documents that were produced by AATIP. And lo and behold, and this was confirmed earlier by a leaked document, but it just wasn't official, and it became official this year. These documents were listed in that Freedom of Information Act request. And this is proof that these were the documents produced in the AATIP program. Now, to give him credit, John Greenewald actually did post on his website. I didn't see this anywhere else. He posted, I saw these documents back in late December and early January, but dismissed them as they are largely sourced / credited to Corey Goode, a very controversial figure to begin with. If they are genuine, and they may be, these documents do not appear that they were released under any official channels, so the biggest question is, how did Corey get them? I have not found an older source, but I'm open if anyone else has. And I also myself, on December 17th, as soon as Corey mentioned these documents, well, it was shortly after I talked to him about it, I started Google searching quotes, phrases in the documents, looking for references online to see if there could have been anything earlier, and I could not find anything. And basically, I brought all this to Corey Goode's attention in September 2018. He wasn't talking about these documents at all. And that's kind of the most amazing thing about this, is that this Defense Intelligence Agency source, who has like allowed Corey Goode to have proof that he has an inside source, Corey Goode didn't see it that way. He didn't really talk about this at all. The emphasis Corey places on the other experiences he's having, like if he was making those up, you would think he would put emphasis on the stuff that's provably real. But he doesn't. He put emphasis on the stuff that's most incredible to him based on his experiences, which happens to be the stuff with the Inner Earth contacts, the stuff with the Secret Space Program contacts, the stuff with the Earth Alliance contacts, Defense Intelligence Agency contact. This guy was apparently small potatoes to Corey Goode. Dr. Eric Davis, one of the authors of these papers, said, I don't know how you got 2 of my Defense Intelligence reference document reports. And when I was there with Corey Goode telling him about this, he was like, what? Really? He clearly had no idea. I was there with my wife. She could confirm this. He clearly had no idea that there was any significance like this to the documents. And his immediate reaction was essentially, tell Michael Salla. Let Michael Salla help publish this and get it out there, and maybe look more into it. Michael Salla found that Eric Davis said in a June 24th appearance on Coast to Coast Radio, June 2018, that 2 or 3 of these papers had been leaked onto the internet by someone on the Beltway. The Beltway is a highway that encircles Washington. A reference to inside the Beltway means matters of importance to U.S. government officials, lobbyists, and government contractors, and not just someone's grandma giving it to Corey Goode. And I recently saw Michael Salla bringing this up again in his article titled Preparing for Disclosure in Solar Flash Events, Corey Goode at Cosmic Waves, dated April 26, 2019. He revealed what Corey Goode was saying about the DIA source, which was what I heard from Corey back in early November 2017. And another thing here in this article, like, I don't know if I've heard hardly anybody talking about, Corey Goode at one point recently said that high-level Earth Alliance sources comprising senior officials who he was working with have been introduced to David Wilcock, Jordan Sather, and myself, Michael Salla. I can confirm that I have met a senior military intelligence official from a NATO country whom Corey Goode introduced me to, and upon whom I conducted due diligence. I was able to confirm his rank as general, but have been asked not to reveal more about his identity. What I can confirm is that the general was convinced about the reality of Corey Goode's secret space program information and was actively helping him gather intelligence information that would support his mission. So at this point, you have to wonder, if Corey Goode is so obviously lying, why is he getting legitimate insiders helping him get more intelligence and more insiders? What is going on here? This is not normal for the UFO community, for someone who is just a fraud, just making it up. And of course, I haven't even gotten started with all the different categories of evidence for why I originally believed Corey Goode. This is just like one of the recent things that came up. But it's also unusual that there's so much drama and controversy, maybe. Someone who's regular on the UFO circuit suddenly doesn't show up to conferences, and I don't actually know why. The situation with Gaia, David Wilcock and Corey Goode both leaving Gaia in 2018. A lot of people don't understand what's really going on. Is there something else going on here? And I do feel like this is all part of like a larger intended timeline for Corey Goode's life. And this is like pure speculation now. I'm just going to get into my own opinions here, interwoven with some of my experiences. But I really think the most logical reason that this stuff had to happen is people have to be able to believe what they want to believe. And anybody who's read The Law of One, and maybe I should step back and confirm that, so Corey Goode actually did say in one of his posts that the Blue Avians absolutely 100% confirmed that they were responsible for the Law of One channeled material. And so it would make sense that we should be using the Law of One more to verify and validate what Corey Goode is saying, because he actually very obviously hasn't read it all yet, and I'll go into that a little bit. But anybody who's read the Law of One material will know the number one thing they emphasize, the number one factor they're using to evaluate what they should be sharing and how they should be sharing it, is free will. They're always talking about free will. They're always talking about what they call the first distortion. This is like the fundamental law that is protecting the way consciousness evolves. And there's a lot of people out there who really had trouble with Corey Goode's testimony, really didn't want to believe it, couldn't believe it, felt like it had to be fraudulent based on their own belief system. Even the fact that the Law of One material was channeled to begin with. The whole point of channeling and not coming down is that we can easily dismiss channeling. It's very easy to say, oh, it's just another channeling. And I've seen practically anyone who does serious research into this topic sees tons of channel material as contradicting other channel material. And so it's like, well, I guess it can't possibly be all true, and how can I really validate it? It's certainly not, most channeling doesn't have enough specifics that you can easily validate it. The Law of One maybe more so than anything else. But the point is still that there have to be enough doorways to go the direction you want with your beliefs and say, I just can't deal with this. This is not part of my life experience right now. And in that way, the path of growth is not impeded upon by having to process somebody else's beliefs about Birdman or something. You just got a cat and she needs a lot of attention. So you can obviously see how something like Gaia, putting a lot of money into a person that looks like there's some type of corporate gain by propping up this person, that makes it look like the information maybe is just about profit. Maybe that information needs to stand on its own for people to be able to freely, not have these kind of biases towards distrusting corporations preventing them from thinking one thing or another. So one thing I didn't mention yet was this allegation of doxing, that there's like this energy of people in supporters of Corey like looking for information about people who are supposedly opponents of Corey. I also want to say that nobody told me to make this video, nobody suggested I make a video. There was none of that. This is just me feeling like it's time I should probably make a video because of some of the things that I was involved with in the past and people's expectations. Maybe this guy Mike was somehow involved. I don't know. I thought it was time. And because I think I was maybe partly involved in some of this, what people perceived, because I actually made a video that actually was essentially exposing aspects of a person's background who was Corey's chief critic at the time. This was back in July 2017. I posted this video. I took the video down after like a month. It just didn't feel right. It obviously isn't the kind of thing that I wanted to be represented by. But nevertheless, it was some really good philosophy I put in that video that I'm going to include probably at the end of this video, just to have it on my channel. For me, I knew that Corey was talking about, like, there was this, he specifically said Rothschild attempt to influence and the UFO field and attack him, essentially. And so I was kind of curious, and I looked into this guy a little bit, and I found you can actually find legitimate, apparently, a connection to the Rothschild banking family, believe it or not. But even though the connection is not necessarily that strong, based on what I found, it's still there, and it's interesting, and I thought it was interesting enough to share. So I felt kind of weird about the whole thing. But I don't know if there would have been like an unintended side effect of like everybody in the community thinking, oh, wow, look at this. We just have to investigate Corey's critics, and that way we'll have this wonderful exposure of the deep, dark cabal, or something like that. I really don't think that a lot of these people who are critics of Corey Goode are actually like part of something very, very sinister, explicitly or intentionally. I do think that everyone is like influenced in our minds in the metaphysical plane by entities who want to kind of manipulate us for their own benefit, but I don't really care that much. I know that I'm very fortunate not to have to be the target of attacks. And I assume this video will make me a target because smiling a lot, maybe I don't know. I wasn't a target of attacks last time. But one of the things that happened to me while this video was still up, I had a Blue Avian dream. And just had one of these types of dreams. It was very vivid. It was a different kind of dream that I felt like slightly more aware, alert, awake than in a lot of dreams. Very crystal clear images. And at the time, I was living in my parents' basement, and I had built a pyramid in my parents' basement that I was sleeping in. I slept in there for 4 years. I lived there for 4 years, slept in there for 4 years. And I've had some paranormal experiences with the pyramid. Maybe I'll leave that to another video too. And by the way, this pyramid is now in my backyard, and the animals, wildlife seems to love it. We even have like a fully fenced-in backyard, and somehow the deer managed to find like this little narrow strip of fence that they can hop over to get back in there and poop in the right in the middle of that pyramid. My life kind of catapulted forward after that point. I met my wife initially the very week I moved out, so maybe I should have moved out sooner. But I really did enjoy sleeping in the pyramid because I built the pyramid to a specification that was 8 feet tall, 12.5 feet at the base, and I built it so that it was made of copper. So I built it so that my pineal gland would be right about the King's Chamber position in terms of the energy, and this is talked about a lot in the Law of One material, and that's why I did it. There's a quote in Law of One, Session 59. There are places in the Great Pyramid wherein perfect sleep may be obtained and age reversed. These characteristics are not important. I ignored that part. This is basically about the elevation of the Queen's Chamber position, more close to the side of the pyramid. And fortunately, a mattress was just about that height, so that the center of my body would be about the elevation of the Queen's Chamber position. And sure enough, I really didn't need as much sleep when I was sleeping in there. It was like really good sleep, usually like 6.5 hours instead of like 7.5 hours. It was pretty nice. But on this night that I had the dream, which was in July of 2017 when that video was up, I was not sleeping in the pyramid because my parents were getting ready to sell the house. They're painting, and so I was in another room, and it was around midnight, and I was overworking myself like crazy around then. I was trying to get my freelance business started and built up to the point where I had some sustainable income. I was basically like intentionally sleeping for like an hour and a half in the middle of the night, and then like setting my alarm and waking up. In this dream, I saw Blue Avian that was 8 feet tall. I didn't think it was 8 feet tall in the dream, but I noticed it was exactly the height of the pyramid. It was standing in the pyramid with Corey Goode standing in the pyramid, and I saw them kind of exchanging non-verbally, and maybe some hand signals, I think, of the right hand of the Blue Avian, and I was just kind of not feeling any emotions. This was not like, oh my God, there's Blue Avian. This was just like this weird like thing in front of me, and I was just kind of like really curious about the nature of the interaction. Like, this is a very curious kind of interaction, and I was seeing what seemed like a kind of light energy that was like extending out from the Blue Avian and almost like interacting with the aura of Corey Goode. It was a really subtle thing, and it was kind of like I got the point that this this transfer of energy was actually like taking away a pain from Corey and taking it on to the self of the Blue Avians, as though there was a great deal of challenge in getting this information such that it would be delivered properly and in a clear enough channel through Corey Goode. And it was like this was the mechanism by which they were helping Corey Goode become what he needed to be, to deliver the messages and do what he needed to do. But after this exchange occurred, I saw the Blue Avian walking away, walking towards me. Corey disappeared. The Blue Avian started walking up the stairs of our house. This was like the pyramid was to my left, the stairs were to the right. And as they started walking, I noticed that they were kind of limping a little bit, and they were kind of having trouble getting up the stairs a little bit. They were like limping up the stairs. And I could tell it was because of this energy that had transferred from Corey to the Blue Avians that they were having to kind of deal with. But I could see as they were getting higher in the stairs, and the stairs were kind of like increasingly becoming like a fog, like going to heaven or something. And it was like, as they were moving up, they were more able to deal with this this limp and kind of like walk it off until they were finally healed, as they were finally disappearing out of sight, leaving this reality or something. And so I kind of had this thought, like, what is this? What is going on here? And they said, you would think of this, you would call this the grace of the guru. And this is a very clear phrase that came to me right before I woke up, and so I looked it up a little bit, and I sent the details to Corey Goode on Skype, and he said, "Oh yeah, interesting. I've seen a lot of other people talking about Blue Avian dreams." And that was the end of it with him. And I didn't really see anything about karma when I looked up initially the phrase "the grace of the guru," that there would have been some kind of transfer of karma or something. But later on, I did look that up more. More recently, I looked it up more and found some evidence of that is definitely being talked about that way. In my original notes about this, I also put that they were doing like a small meditative act at each step they went to. I did find a reference, a website, harmonist.us, stating, although it is said that the guru takes the karma of the disciple, this means the guru takes it away by engaging the disciple in sadhana bhakti and blessing him or her. And that this is the more significant process of how the Guru's grace destroys one's karma by engaging in the blessing. So at this point in my life, it's interesting to me to think about all the stuff going on with Corey Goode and maybe his karma, and maybe a lot of other things that are going on that are balancing out this strong energy of people feel like, oh, there's something wrong with Corey Goode, and we have to find it. We have to find it. And mirroring this other energy of, oh, we have to find out what's wrong with the people who are looking for things that are wrong with Corey Goode. So it definitely seems like this balancing back and forth of people just not finding the way to believe what they want to believe and leaving it at that. They have to, make other people believe what they believe and really, really put their egos behind it, basically. And it's like such a religious thing that people like absolutely have to keep these walls between us. Like, are you pro Corey Goode? Are you not pro Corey Goode? It shouldn't really matter. And this is a part of my life experience bigger than people might realize, because I started a meetup group in Colorado Springs in 2015 called Extraterrestrial Disclosure and Contact, and I've been meeting every single kind of person, hearing every single kind of thing, all types of abduction experiences, all types of good and bad experiences with many, many types of species. It's incredible, if you do this kind of thing, what kind of people you get exposed to who just had no way to come forward, nobody to come forward to. But in the process, I have to be very careful. People have all types of belief systems, and I have learned it doesn't really matter that much what I believe. It matters that people can have somewhere to expand, to grow through. Now, the truth is important, but the truth is important mainly because of what we do with it and what we're able to do because we're rooted in it. And it's not so important just because we feel like we have to be able to bolster our credibility by showing how everything we believe is 100% verifiable, and therefore you must submit to Bible thumping about the evidence that I found. And so I think this might be one of the explanations for why the Blue Avians left and why they don't interact with hardly anyone, which is that there's a lot of karma to get entangled with when you come down here, and it's really complicated. And this subject probably deserves another video on its own to discuss how much Ra talks about the free will preservation aspects of the way they interact with people. I talked a lot about this in my 2017 Eclipse of Disclosure presentation. I also mentioned the synchronicity about the movie Birdman. I haven't heard anyone else talking about this. The movie is kind of like a dark comedy, and I can't necessarily recommend it, except I mean, I noticed a ton of synchronicities around this movie connecting to Corey Goode. I mean, well beyond the fact that there's this man in the blue bird suit who's kind of like haunting the main character. And so this movie won the Best Picture Academy Award February 22nd, 2016, which was Corey Goode's birthday. I didn't know that when I was first talking about it. 3 days later, though, is when David Wilcock, for the very first time, talked about Blue Avians to the public. He went on Coast to Coast AM with George Norrie, told all the basics of Corey Goode's story, and when I was looking back on it, I realized, oh wow, that was like really close timing. This Academy Award 3 days before David Wilcock goes on the radio to talk about the Blue Avians for the first time. But I mean, this movie, I'm probably have to make another video about it. It's like this movie, it goes into the legal issues with the person who you don't want on the stage with you. And the antagonists of the movie are the critics, of course. Of course, the point of this is that we're all just actors on a stage. There's just one layer of reality in truth. And of course, as the law of one says, we are also players upon the stage. The stage changes, the acts ring down, the lights come up once again, and throughout the grand illusion and the following, there is the undergirding majesty of the one infinite creator. One other thing I wanted to talk about was like, so in August 2017, after I gave my Eclipse of Disclosure presentation, it was a Friday, I was in the conference on a Saturday. I was just like listening to Michael Salla, I think, and Roger Richards came walking up and down the side of the chairs, and he was like looking for me, and he found me and asked me if I would go help come up with some law of one quotes for Corey's presentation. And I said sure, and so I went back. This is actually the first time I sat down one-on-one with Corey Goode and got to ask him some questions. Other times I felt too awkward in the context of other things. And I sat down with him for about, I don't know, maybe a half hour, maybe less, coming up with some law of one quotes. And everything I suggested came up with, he was just trying to understand. He used in his presentation. And this video you can find on his channel right now is called Solar Flash Ascension or Full Circumference CME Micronova - Law of One. October 31st, 2017 it was posted. And I'm talking in like the first 20 minutes of this video reading off Law of One quotes. I didn't know I was going to be doing that. I was kind of nervous. But what blew my mind was like, I really, really wanted to know what was Corey Goode going to talk about. I'm like, just like any other fan at this time, I'm like, I really want to know. And here it's like I have to put it together partly. But what was so interesting to me is that you get this sense of faith. The Corey did not know what I would come up with. Corey did not feel that there was any chance what I was going to come up with would be contradictory to his testimony, to the rest of the presentation, which had already been mostly made, I guess. And I was just like helping them pad it out a little bit more with more material. But it was like mind-blowing to me. He clearly didn't know the material. I clearly had to explain it to him, and he clearly trusted that it was going to be validating everything that he was saying. And I can actually awkwardly tell you that there are definitely other people, even at that conference, speakers who were contradicting things that are in the Law of One. It's not that hard to do, actually. And I don't necessarily want to like call anybody out or anything, but I recommend people read the Law of One and figure out, like, you know, are there actually contradictions between different sources? But it's a pretty surprising thing when you see so many people, and it does take a lot of work to review everything that's in the material to understand this. And this is a massive part of the validation of Corey Goode that I've been trying to do that nobody else, except David Wilcock, is putting any emphasis on, this validating process. But I'm just sharing with you the fact that there was clearly this kind of me needing to explain it to him, but him having faith that whatever it was going to be fully in alignment with what he was talking about. And that is the most appealing thing to me of all about Corey Goode, is that he is always going to be 100% alignment with the Law of One and trusting that this is legit, the same source that he was having experiences with, the Blue Avians. And so I'm going to keep on it, keep talking about the Law of One. I'm going to keep talking about Corey Goode a little bit too when it's relevant. There's a lot more I kind of wanted to say in this video. It feels like maybe this is probably enough for now. So I'll be speaking at Dimensions of Disclosure 2019, talking about the Law of One a lot, talking about some other personal experiences, other things that are connected to the bigger story of what's going on, why there's so much of a divide in the UFO community. I'll address some of the philosophy that I've been appreciative of. So I want to say I love you guys, and thank you for listening.
Though Jacques didn't mention it today, I recall in his book, The Invisible College, he stressed the absurdity that seems to attend the contact experience, that if the contactee will truly tell the unvarnished truth, then there will be elements in the story which will make the contactee look like a moron. In other words, the invalidation of the experience is an inimical part of its structure, almost as though the entities were saying, well, you may tell this story if you wish, but if you tell it truthfully, you'll be taken for a fool. Well, there's nothing wrong with being taken for a fool, except that it does seal the phenomenon rather nicely away from the very sober ladies and gentlemen who are making their careers in some branch of science. In looking at the effect, not asking the question, what is it, but what does it do, you very quickly see what the flying saucers are doing. What they are doing is eroding faith in science. They are an antidote to the scientific paradigm that has evolved over the past 400 years and which has led us to the brink of global catastrophe.
I think there's a tremendous trap that people can fall into when they want to just say this person is totally trustworthy or totally untrustworthy and just dismiss 100% of the information or accept 100% of the information. That's kind of just a lazy approach to understanding the world around us. We wish it were that easy, but ultimately the Earth is still just like a school, and we have to learn and grow through our experiences, and discovering the truth is a process. It's not something that's just given to you on a silver platter. It's always been a process, and this is a part of our own development. This is why we're here, to learn the lessons, to learn to accept one another, and be able to be open to hearing information. That's a part of all of this. And ultimately, being able to deal with other people and hear that information has to do with lessons of forgiveness, acceptance, and ultimately love. We have to actually grow and open our hearts a little bit to be able to have an unbiased view of the truth. And this is a little bit counterintuitive for a lot of people who feel like we have to sort of distance ourselves from emotion entirely, because there is a lot of truth in the fact that emotions are a sign of imbalance in us. And this is discussed in the Law of One. Ra gave some examples of how we should be taking one thought and then trying to hold in our minds the opposite kind of thought if there was an emotional charge there. So that way we have an opportunity to experience the other side of the coin and then potentially heal the imbalanced emotional drive within us that was trying to seek one experience or the other in an imbalanced fashion. And Don Elkins was asking Ra about if this is a kind of objectivity to kind of withdraw from emotion. They say in session 42, the exercise of first experiencing feelings and then consciously discovering their antithesis has the objective not the smooth flow of feelings, both positive and negative, while remaining unswayed, but rather the objective of becoming unswayed. They say the end result of this kind of balancing is not indifference or objectivity, but a finely tuned compassion and love which sees all things as love. And this seeing elicits no response due to catalytic reactions, seeing information. This entity is now able to become co-creator of experiential occurrences. This is the truer balance. So we have this model of objectivity which kind of deals with being apathetic in a lot of ways, but really the true balance, in order to perceive the truth, would be a love for everyone. And in that love, we don't just withdraw. We get a little bit involved enough to understand the information and process it properly without having some sort of judgments here and there that are not based in love. And so I'm ultimately trying to say that what we need to do is move more from being focused so much on people and can we trust this person? Should we be skeptical and judgmental? We can be skeptical of their information. We don't have to just necessarily always push for the messenger and their credibility. We can look at the message. We can take in the information as it comes to us from any source and weigh it on its own merits based on all the other pieces of information we've heard, and use a kind of compassionate rationality rather than a kind of attempt to withdraw from all compassion in order to be skeptical where we don't want to believe people. That's just not how it works. We can be compassionate towards everyone, and that's much, much easier to understand the truth when we have that attitude. So I will go ahead and explain, since people were asking about this quite a bit, how can I possibly believe Corey Goode? Okay, well, there's a lot of categories of ideas here that I could go into. I won't go into very much because this is already getting long. So some of the categories I would say I have come to trust Corey Goode generally would be continued correlations from other sources. Obviously, we hear about these many different whistleblowers coming forward, like Pete Peterson, Bill Tompkins. Obviously, even Henry Deacon has said quite a lot that has helped us understand the bigger picture of the secret space programs. It's interesting how this keeps coming up, and people who have already decided to dismiss Corey Goode just don't even care about the new information, just like, I've already decided. But obviously, personal experiences of interesting varieties I've had. I'll go into just a little bit of that. Both physical and non-physical experiences. Obviously, I've had interactions with Corey Goode. Most people we've known who are like sociopaths and just lying all the time, you kind of start to figure that out the more you talk to them. With Corey, it's like the opposite. The more you talk to him, the more you realize he's just kind of like a regular guy, and he's got some difficult things he's gone through. The third category would be something like my own rational analysis of a variety of factors, including my analysis of everything about David Wilcock and his trustworthiness and his vetting process, and Jay Widener and his trustworthiness and his vetting process. Jay Widener did quite a bit of vetting at Gaia. And the fourth category would be something like, in my own intuition, intuitive guidance, questions relating to David Wilcock and Gaia are also of an intuitively enhanced nature. When I got to go meet the CEO of Gaia, Jurka, and he's pretty cool. I got to ask him an awful lot of questions. There's a whole other area there. I don't really need 4 categories of evidence because kind of at this point I feel there's an overwhelming weight of evidence for the general trustworthiness that he's not lying and that sort of thing. But obviously you can be skeptical of every single piece of information, and I certainly still question a lot of little things. And I will go ahead and give one example of personal experience. So on the morning when Corey did his report of discussing having gone to Mars, which I was not expecting, I woke up out of bed, looked at my phone, saw it on Facebook, and then read the article. The morning I had a dream before I knew that the article was posted, before I was expecting the article. I had a dream which felt a lot like Mars, a lot like a base on Mars, and I got a lot of visual images of the space, and I got glimpses of an aspect which looked like a very, very ancient sort of part of the facility which had been built around, and I felt like there was it wasn't used as much, but it was a very interesting aspect of the image that I had of this large facility. I was kind of like looking from the front and looking out at the scope of this place, and it was like a snapshot of this place that I had, and I was recording it before I looked at my phone. When I woke up, I was recording this dream. I have the notes of the dream, and then I'm reading this thing about Mars, and it's like, oh my God, I just saw this, and so this is one of the kind of experiences I've had dealing with Corey Goode, reading his information that leads me to think maybe there's something, because I've never had this with other kinds of researchers talking about something out there. It's like I felt like I was kind of remote viewing connected to something that Corey Goode was talking about, and that kind of helped me have a personal experience that it felt like validation. I mean, obviously no one is going to be able to totally see his validation but me, because you didn't see it. But I will point out that the nature of information is such that we have a veil, and our dreams let us go through the veil and see into the unconscious mind, which is not restricted. The conscious mind is purposefully restricted according to the law of material. We purposefully have these limitations so that we'll have more interest in pursuing the truth, pursuing the correct path of learning service to others. And without the veiling between the conscious and unconscious mind, we would know, we would be able to connect to everything psychically, and we wouldn't have as much work to do, and there's not as much value in that. So dreams are very helpful. It depends on the person, what you can get out of your dreams, your level of balance. Law of One says dreaming is an activity of communication through the veil of the unconscious mind and the conscious mind. The nature of this activity is wholly dependent upon the situation regarding the energy center blockages, the chakras, activations, and crystallizations of a given mind-body-spirit complex, a person. So it's up to you how much balance you have, how much you can get out of your unconscious mind, pull through your intuition. But all of this is set up as a game so that we can learn to grow in these skills. And we're not free from this process of needing to work for the truth. Just because we're in a field where you feel like you ought to know the truth. We deserve the truth so much. But we never escaped this game. We're still in this game of learning love and learning growth. And even though we might feel like we're on another level of this and we deserve it more than the general public, because we have the need to bring it to the general public, it's just not the case. We're going to have to work for the truth. And the ETs are obviously aware that if they were just going to come give us the truth, the high level ETs more so strict about this than the lower level ones, the higher density ETs like the Blue Avians. They're not going to come in here and do anything with us, not going to be our saviors. So ridiculous. People keep saying that people are expecting the Blue Avians to be saviors of some sort. The most insane thing that Corey Goode keeps saying the opposite of, that people who are opponents of Corey Goode keep saying over and over and over, like somehow their words make it more true. It's just ridiculous. The ETs are not here to save us, and this is what I'm trying to emphasize. It's an individual process for each of us, and as grandiose as we think this whole thing is, to find the next level of the Earth, the fourth density revealed new Earth, we're still just on another level of the game of learning love and light and returning back to the Creator. It's the context of the lesson is just meaningless compared to what we take from the lesson and how we can expand and grow through it.